Okay, we're back with Justin Ma from the With Archery, the specialist in Chinese traditional archery. So this is part two, and we've covered so much in part one. In this second part, we're just going to talk about arrows, traditional arrows that he's got, and things related to that, and maybe get in a couple of questions. If we can't fit everything in, then we will have Justin back at another time and do a part three, hopefully. So Justin, so you're going to move on to arrows now.
Yeah. What I wanted to say about arrows, as far as materials that were used, again, depended where you lived, whether it was the drier parts of northern China, the more humid parts in southern China, what materials were available. But they would typically be made with wood or bamboo.
Right.
So woods like willow, poplar, birch in the north, and then in the south you would use a species of bamboo that would be appropriate for making arrows with.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to show a couple of examples here. So this is actually an arrow made by Yap Copa Dryer. This is actually made using bamboo grown on his farm in Southeast United States. And for a comparison point, I wanted to show a wooden antique Qing Dynasty arrow.
Wow.
The Qing Dynasty, again, for 17th through 20th centuries AD, they shot it from bows that were about this big.
Right, yeah, obviously. So that arrow, it looks, I mean, it's thicker, it's longer, it's got a broad head on there. How tall are these warriors to be able to pull like a 36-inch monster arrow like that?
Well, taller than me, that's for sure. I mean, I'm of Southern Chinese descent, so my people are a bit on the shorter side in terms of genetic position for height.
The Chinese are interesting. You do have kind of two extremes. Some, a lot of shorter people, but some of the Chinese are like super tall.
Yeah, and especially the Manchus themselves from Northeast China, they were known for being bigger, taller people. You look at some of the antique armors that were excavated for certain emperors, and it's like it's big, right? These were tall people, so
yeah,
this type of draw length was not far fetched for them. So like a tall person wants to shoot with a long draw, you're going to get an arrow like this.
Yeah.
Of course, then once that style of archery gets standardized for the rest of China, then you've got shorter people try to like really crank it back and shoot to the best they can. Or if they couldn't do that, you at least use your index finger as an indicator that you've reached full draw.
Right.
Your standard at that point, you're standardizing arrow lengths. You don't want to customize. Okay, well, for these people, I'll make this longer arrow. For those people, I'll make arrows. No, this is easier to make one arrow length.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wanted to ask. Okay, so I mentioned to you about. I think it was maybe I made the mistake. The Qing, was it the Qing warriors who were buried and they were uncovered?
It was the. Okay, so these are the Qing warriors.
Qing
Qin, not Qing. Qing Qing is 17th through 20th century AD. The Qin, who are the Qin who arguably were who China was named after because they were the first to sort of unify the Chinese states.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were the first to unify the Chinese states under an imperial. Like a straight up centralized imperial structure. Before then, it was more feudal, right? But the Qin, they had their terracotta army uncovered.
That's the one, the terracotta army. Yeah, that's the one. Did they find any bows and arrows with them?
Not to my recollection, and if they did, it would probably have belonged to crossbowmen.
Right.
Yeah, because the Qin were definitely keen on crossbow tactics for their infantry, as were some other states that were fighting against the Qin as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a much earlier on in the civilization of Chinese warfare. And
that's right.
China. Yeah. Okay. So it evolved after that. Here's a quick question from someone. They're saying, Are there any texts that shows the diet, physical strength training, and archery practice of a Ming archer?
So like training regimen basically for Ming archer.
Right.
Not to my knowledge there.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're kind of trying to not reconstruct, but at least get ourselves in a position where we're able to shoot this kind of draw weights. I mean, I guess the best you could go with is one of the guidelines that Gallian provides in his book is that if you can dry pull a bow of X, then you should be shooting with a bow of X divided by 2 draw weight, like 50% your max dry pull strength. And there are variations of those rules of thumb. Like some other sources, like Li Chengfen from the Ming Dynasty, will say if you can shoot with a 10 Li bow, then you should actually be shooting more regularly with something at 90% of your max strength. So whether it's 50% of max strength or 90% of max strength or something in between, like that would be kind of one way to go about it, right? Because again, Lisa, from my personal experience, you can't get stronger at shooting a bow unless you're shooting a bow.
Absolutely, right.
So, yeah.
It has to be kind of, what do they say? It has to be like kind of archery specific.
Yeah, activity specific too.
Activity specific, exactly.
Yeah, they talk about this in the sports science literature as well. Like strength is a very activity specific thing. What is it? Specific adaptation to impose demand, I think is the fancy, or said is the fancy acronym.
Right. Okay, got you. Someone asked, have you tried other styles, i.e. Korean, Kyudo, Mongol, bows or archery? Or have you just focused on Chinese?
Largely focused on Chinese archery. I mean, I think that I may have used my technique to try shooting with other styles and shapes of bows. Like one of the bows that I have is a 90-pound YMG Korean bow. That was a nice kind of bow that I practiced with in my progression to getting higher draw weights there.
Right. Okay.
As for the techniques themselves, no, I haven't practiced other techniques there, but I'm a close observer in terms of what they're doing as well, right? Because the human body can only move in certain ways.
Correct.
So I like to observe, what are they doing with their shoulder?
Yeah.
What is the quality of the release there as well? Because the thing is, you're going to see examples of great archery in any culture.
Yes, sure.
And they're going to have, whether it's Ottoman archery, Chinese archery, Japanese archery, Mongolian archery, English archery. Like if you look at the quality of release, then you will see almost the same thing, which is something that cleanly goes straight back. It's devoid of any sort of like jerking or creeping or plucking or anything like that.
Yeah. Link to that. There was a video you did about the draw, and you had those 3 types of draws. So you had the low draw, like the parallel draw, and then the high draw, right?
Yeah.
One thing that resonated with me was the ideal one that you were talking about. So here it says the lifting draw, which is weak. You have the straight draw, which is kind of in the middle, and then you have the push down draw, which really reminded me of current day Korean style Olympic archery. So today in the Olympics, the Koreans are they've been ruling the show for years anyway, and they have this very kind of typical kind of call it an upside down V draw, so from the top down. And it seems that there is a lot of history to that in terms of the anatomy of the body and, why that is a superior draw than just kind of pulling straight.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say would be a case of convergent evolution among different cultures. I think let's see, we can go to the middle of that video, actually. There's a segment, I have a slide in there that shows depictions of archers from different cultures. Might be there it is. Yeah, there we go. So we can pause on that one.
Right,
Yeah. So that ending posture where the elbows are slightly elevated above the shoulders. Let's disregard the canting of the torso for now, but relative to the shoulders, the elbows are a little higher there. And I think it converged for the people who are able to shoot heavier bows. I think it converged to this kind of posture just because, there are only a certain number of ways that you can move the body.
Mm.
And it just so happens that this push down draw, where you start with the bow from a slightly higher position to a more level position, engages, muscles in the back that, are good for vertical rows and a vertical pull down as well as a horizontal pull. So that's just, maximizing the use of those strong back muscles there.
Yeah.
And here you see examples of, on the upper left, a depiction of a Ming archer in the painting.
Right.
So he's got sort of a canted torso. And then to the right of him, you see Mark Stretton. He holds the Guinness record for shooting a 200-pound longbow. His typical draw weight is 140 pounds.
Right. Justin, I'm going to have to just pause you there for 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry, 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. Yes. So we had this slide. Let's go back here again. Sorry. So we had different positions.
You can actually go to the does the historical draw weights?
That's the one.
This is good. This is good.
This one. Okay. We're on this slide, right?
That's right. Yeah. Where is that slide? It's like 8. Yeah, there it is.
There it is. Okay. Fine. So it's interesting. You have is this an African archer here?
Yes. That's a member of the Liangulu people.
Right.
They are known as elephant hunters.
Wow, crazy.
So they will shoot bows in the 100 to 131 pound range, wooden bows, and they would hunt elephants. So, and not all of them had form as good as this, but right. I would say this is probably one of the stronger guys, because you can see he's settled his bow shoulder and he's performing a kind of that push down draw, from
definitely
up to level.
Yeah. I'm just surprised they were able to manufacture and make bows that heavy in like the Sahara Desert or in the Savannah Desert or wherever they are. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because
then of course, and then in the Japanese sphere, you've got folks who are, and we're talking about military weight bows. Like the posture is similar there as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially in certain.
They had like a wide stance, kind of straight back. I mean, this guy's leaning in a little bit, but otherwise they're trying to be straight. But you were saying Mark Stretton. I mean, there's very much a lean there.
Yeah, and Joe Gibbs as well. Joe Gibbs, he's able to shoot 200-pound high and higher. I believe higher bows as well. Don't quote me on that. I have to kind of check that out. But 200 pounds for sure.
Excellent, awesome. All right, Justin, we're going to wrap this one up. We're definitely going to do a part 2 because there's so much more that we wanted to get through. I want to just finish on something here. And someone sent me this. We have a WhatsApp group here. So someone sent this to us and it's very interesting. So it said, the 6 art forms, the 6 arts formed the basis of education in ancient Chinese culture during the Zhao dynasty. I probably said that wrong. Students were required to master the 6 arts. So they had rites, music, archery, charioteering, calligraphy, mathematics. Yes. Those who excelled in these were thought to have reached the state of perfection. Have you come across this? And if so, what can you comment on this?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of, people who are familiar with Chinese culture of those days were definitely familiar with the fact that archery was one of the 6 noble arts. Right. For people who were so back in the Zhou dynasty, it was a feudal society. Then you had these elites ruling over different parts of China, very much hierarchical structure.
Right.
But then if you as a ruler, you were you had to develop, a set of not just civil skills, but sort of martial skills as well. And so archery and charioteering would fall under the umbrella of martial. And then, the rites, the music, the calligraphy, the mathematics would fall under civil kind of skills as well. And that era is actually pretty pivotal in terms of from a archery point of view as well, because back then they had the archery ritual, also called the sheli in Chinese. Basically, this was a contest where you had archers pairing off, shooting a target, and they would be graded on how well they did, but they had to shoot according to a particular protocol and a particular form. They had to approach the shooting platform in a certain way, bow according to a certain protocol, pay their respects, and then shoot to a particular manner as well. And
much like the Japanese Kudo style.
Well, and the Japanese Kudo will acknowledge that their roots, the ceremonial aspects, were inspired by the Chinese archery ritual.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the Chinese archery ritual itself in the Zhou dynasty, we're talking first millennium BC, that was used to actually select rulers of fiefdoms.
Wow.
Because if you could demonstrate your virtue through the archery ritual, then you are demonstrating that you'll be capable of administering a particular fiefdom as well. Yeah. So
awesome.
that was the significance of the archery ritual in the early days. Now, the archery ritual continued later on in Chinese history in different forms. Like it was kind of loosely inspiring the military examinations that you would see in the Tang dynasty and afterwards. So
right, excellent. No, that's very interesting. There's something similar they have in the requirements of being like a religious leader or an imam in the Ottoman period. I think they had about 10 or 11 requirements. I think it was all of these, but in addition, they had things like astronomy and a few other skills that they needed. And if you didn't have some of these, you were not considered to be cultured and well educated and things like that. So I think I speak for myself. If I was put into those times, I probably I wouldn't be an eligible bachelor or anything. I'd be way down the list. I mean, but it goes to show how high the standard was back then for society and how they deemed people to be eligible for certain roles and things in society.
I think and there's sort of a practical, like from an evolutionary lens too. Like there's a practical reason to cultivate those kinds of mix of sort of cultural skills and military skills as well,
right.
Because when you form a government, a ruling body, a ruling class, that is you got to keep the hooligans out, right? You
exactly.
have like people who will not listen to reason, or you have to kind of you have to defend yourself, or unfortunately impose your will.
Sure.
In a certain way as well. But then, without the culture aspects of it, then you yourself become hooligans, right? And then just like, what's the point of having a society with, beautiful culture,
right?
Food, customs, arts, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's like to protect the beautiful things, like you have to, be able to develop martial skills as well.
Absolutely. 100%. Excellent. I think that's a great place to stop for now. So Justin, you've blown my mind. You've given us a history lesson. It's been amazing. Really, really interesting. We covered so much. We appreciate your time. I hope you will agree to do a part 2 to this, because I think we still have to cover a number of other questions that people have sent in. And there's a couple of other videos on your YouTube site I wanted to go through, but for now, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, you and Zhetian, for your effort with the book. We hope people will go and get copies of that if they can. We gave them the website. So yeah, that was awesome. It's very an honor for me to meet you and have a chat with you. And I hope in the next week or so we'll try and do a part 2, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you for your thoughtful questions and for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. That's great. Just stop that. Thank you so much.